The year is 1717. There is a massive excitement in the imperial palace in Vienna as wife of Emperor Charles VI, the last male heir of the Habsburg Dynasty, is about to give birth. The emperor wondered in his chamber nervously. A 500-year-old dynasty. Now everything was up to God. If she gives birth to a male heir, the dynasty would live. If not, it would be the end of Habsburgs. He prayed to God for a son. Suddenly, a servant entered the chamber. His wife gave birth to a healthy child. Charles had a daughter. Charles never got over this disappointment. Apparently, he really believed that Maria would have been a son. This would not be the last disappointment of his shrine. The emperor, finally leaving his hopes for a male heir, decided to do his best with what he had, Maria Theresa. He started working in order to make sure Maria would ascend to the throne. He had already issued a decree known as the Pragmatic Sanction of 1713. According to the Pragmatic Sanction, females could ascend to the thrones of Austria, Bohemia, and Hungary, and was putting his daughter Maria before her cousins, Maria Amelia and Maria Josepha. However, Charles was very well aware that this decree was no more than a paper without anyone to back it. Rule of a female, especially the rule of Maria Theresa, would create many enemies, both within and outside the empire. Maria's cousins would not stop plotting to replace her, and her diplomatic recognition would be limited internationally. Charles was not a martial man and was not in favor of a military approach in this issue, so he took the diplomatic path. He sent envoys to European courts demanding full recognition for the Pragmatic Sanction. But other monarchs were not eager to do this favor, at least not for free. Initially, almost all the courts had rejected his demands. He decided that he had to compromise. Compromising would become his main way of dealing with issues eventually. In return of British recognition, Charles dissolved the Austrian-Dutch Indies Company, denying a major source of income to his nation. Other minor bribes would gain him the signatures of Saxony, Russia, Spain, Bavaria, Denmark, Sardinia, Netherlands, and the diet of the Holy Roman Empire. He had gained the diplomatic support at the expense of the imperial treasury. During this period, Prince Eugene, the hero of the Great Turkish War, had urged the emperor to arm his army with this money instead, as those signatures on the sanction could be taken back as easily as they were given. Charles, however, had refused. Meanwhile, Maria was growing up as a future ruler. As a kid, she loved painting and archery. She also loved horses, but her father banned her from riding. She is described as a wild child. Her academic education, however, was somewhat lacking, as she was only taught by Jesuits. Her letters were full of spelling errors, though one thing she learned from them was Latin. She spoke Latin perfectly. Charles also let his daughter attend court meetings, although he refused to discuss politics with her. Charles' main goal was to make sure his daughter inherited the throne, but he never saw her fit to rule. According to him, the future ruler would be Maria's husband, not her. This is why he got her used to customs of ruling, but not the ruling itself. The emperor had also plans for her private life. Maria's hand was promised to Franz Stephen when she was 6, the Duke of Lorraine. Over time, Maria got affectionate towards the Duke, despite him being 6 years senior to her. Though Maria's father saw him as a backup plan most of the time, and constantly searched for candidates from other countries. First, he thought of Friedrich of Prussia, but Friedrich was a Protestant, and he was not going to marry his daughter into a heretic. So Maria grew up knowing Franz as her future husband, and they fell in love. Especially Maria was very passionate about her love. She constantly wrote him letters about how she missed him. Franz, on the other hand, was much more formal. Finally, in 1736, at the age of 19, she married to Stephen. However, Austria was surrounded by hungry wolves. King of France mustered his forces in the east and sent a letter to Vienna. He demanded Lorraine, the domain of Stephen. Emperor Charles did not want to go to war with France, even for a rich province like Lorraine. Even if he wanted war, he had nothing against the numerous French armies. He pleaded to Britain, but was refused. People wanted war, but Charles did not. He knew wars were only won by armies and money, yet thanks to his previous compromises, he had neither. In every case of danger, he made costly compromises. With every compromise, he had less money left in the treasure. With less money, he had less soldiers, and less soldiers meant more aggressive neighbors. It was like a paradox for Austria. At the end, Charles did what he had done the best, compromise. The rich region of Lorraine was given in return of Tuscany, which had only half the population of Lorraine. After their marriage, the couple went to their domain, Florence. This turned out to be their honeymoon. Their stay only lasted for a couple of months. There were ill news coming from the capital. Her father was sick. Maria and her husband hurried back to Vienna. The city was heavy with anger and outrage. None came to cheer for their carriage. Instead, they gave them worried looks. The Turk was winning the war. His father Charles had started a war against the Ottoman Empire. Austrian armies were victorious against the Turks in the wars of 1715 and 1689, and the public expectation was to reclaim Constantinople by the end of the year. Instead, Charles' poorly led armies were crushed by the Turks time after time. As the legendary Duke of Lorraine, Prince Eugene, had died a couple of years ago, the Austrian incompetence was even more evident. That was the moment Maria saw her father's incompetence. He left the army underfunded for decades, which now costed them a war. The day she gets the throne, she told herself, would mark the end of this. The shock and sadness of the lost war and riots in the city were too much of a pressure for a weakly man like Charles. His illness got worse each day, and on 20th October of 1740, a new era for Austria was at the horizon, as Austrian enemies surrounded the airless empire like vultures. However, Maria Theresa was determined. She would not compromise, neither in her personal ambitions or the national ones. She would not only get the throne, but also make Austria great again. My most sincere thanks for giving up your precious time on my humble video. I would be even more grateful if you liked the video and leave a comment. Please subscribe to my channel and take a look at my other videos as well. Have a wonderful day.